Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really fascinating, a bit of a neurological puzzle. Acquired Savant Syndrome.
It is fascinating, isn't it? We're talking about someone, an ordinary person, who suddenly develops these incredible, almost superhuman skills. Maybe complex math or amazing art or music.
Right, skills they never had before.
Exactly. And the trigger, it follows some kind of severe injury to the central nervous system, like a stroke or a serious head trauma, that kind of thing.
And what we're doing today, our deep dive, is looking beyond just the medical facts. We've got source material from a pretty specialized hypnotic research protocol.
That's right. The aim here is to explore the, let's say, the subtle energetic mechanics behind it all. How does trauma actually rewire things on an energetic level to unlock these hidden abilities?
How does that energy shift happen? Okay, let's get into it. When you look at the subtle anatomy, the energetic blueprint of someone with acquired savant syndrome, what stands out? What does the research show?
Well, the first thing you notice, energetically speaking, is the frontal region of the subtle brain. It's striking.
Striking how?
It shows this really intense coloration, concentrated right there. Think vibrant pinks and violets. And the area itself looks, well, enlarged, puffed up almost.
Puffed up, like swollen from the injury.
No, that's the key thing. It's not like physical swelling. It looks more like a bubble of intense energy or light. It's enlarged because it's working so incredibly hard. It's full of concentrated energy.
Okay, so an energetic expansion due to activity. And the sources mention an astonishing work rate.
Astonishing is the right word. This specific frontal part, it was noted as working, potentially, get this, 200 times more intensely than the rest of the brain.
200 times.
Yeah. And crucially, this hyperactive section seems to function separately, almost walled off from the rest of the energetic structure.
While the rest of the brain.
The rest of the subtle brain, the normal parts, often appear kind of sleepy or disconnected. It's like the trauma forced all the power into this one small area, leaving the others sort of dormant.
Wow, working 200 times harder. That must draw a huge amount of energy. Does that explain some of the physical challenges acquired savants often face? That intense focus starving the rest of the system?
That seems to be the direct link, yes. The disconnection you see in the subtle brain, it mirrors in the physical.
Ah, okay.
That massive energy demand from the frontal lobe corresponds with weaker connections, less function in other brain regions. And that translates directly to the physical issues. Maybe weakened limbs or problems on one side of the body, general disability.
Right.
It depends on which connection is weak or, effectively cut off because the main power is being diverted elsewhere.
The resources are just overwhelmingly channeled into that one talent center. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. How is this immense power suddenly switched on? That kind of instant overdrive must need a massive jolt of energy, right?
It absolutely does. The activation involves energy flooding into the subtle body, which then cascades down to the physical. The research points to a couple of ways this can happen.
Okay.
First, it could be internal, meaning there's an energy resource already within the person's system, and the shock or trauma acts like a trigger, releasing it suddenly, like flipping a switch internally.
An internal reservoir unleashed. And the second way, is that external?
Yes, an external influx. Energy comes pouring in from outside the person. This is often linked to the physical event itself. Think a lightning strike, a near drowning, a major accident, or even intense emotional or energetic trauma.
So a shock, internal or external, opens the floodgates.
Pretty much. This huge influx of energy forces open specific channels. It's often seen flowing in through the crown chakra or sometimes the third eye. It varies case by case.
And this changes everything.
It fundamentally shifts their perception. The energy is so intense, it basically forces one part of the brain into that hyperdrive state we talked about, leaving the rest sort of stunned or asleep.
Which leads to the question, this new knowledge, the incredible skills, where does it come from? Is it just dredging up something buried deep inside, or are they actually perceiving something new?
It seems to be a bit of both, but the external aspect, the change in perception, seems key for the new abilities.
How so?
Well, internally, yes, the trauma might unlock access to really deep, maybe ancient personal memories, perhaps past life information, stuff stored in their own energy field.
Okay.
But the truly new skills, like suddenly composing symphonies with no prior training that seems linked primarily to a radically changed perception, their whole energetic filter is different.
Different how?
They can suddenly sense energy directly, maybe perceive different dimensions, see colors differently, receive information from Well, from outside our normal physical reality.
Wow, it's like they suddenly tuned into a completely different broadcast frequency. But that kind of intense shift, the power, the altered perception, it must come at a cost, right?
Yeah.
Energetic vulnerabilities. Let's talk about the chakras involved.
Yes, there's definitely a cost. Looking at the chakras, the crown and third eye are obviously very active. They're the input points for this energy and perception shift.
Right.
But the one that often really stands out is the solar plexus. It's frequently seen as highly energized, sometimes appearing energetically maybe 3 times larger than normal.
3 times larger. The solar plexus. Isn't that usually about personal power, emotions, confidence, that sort of thing?
Exactly. It's the center for processing our emotional responses, feelings of security, personal boundaries. And while it's powerful in its savant, this intense overactivity, it's actually flagged in the research as, quote, not good.
Not good. Why?
Because that intense energy there is strongly linked to fear, anxiety, and a tendency to attract. Let's call them low vibrations.
Low vibrations, you mean like negative emotional states?
You're
Or
correct.
chaotic energy?
Yes, chaotic, discordant energy, often tied to states like intense stress, deep-seated fear, resentment. The solar plexus being so overblown makes it a massive receiver, yes, but also a massive broadcaster of this vulnerable, raw emotional energy.
And that vulnerability, that stress signal, essentially, the sources say it attracts something else, something more active.
It does. This heightened, often ungrounded energetic state, particularly the wide-open vulnerability of that oversized solar plexus, it acts almost like a beacon
A beacon for what?
for what the research refers to as external entities or interference.
Interference, like non-physical beings.
That's what the source examples indicated, yes. These beings were observed, connected directly via the third eye and the perception center and that highly charged solar plexus.
Wait a minute, this really changes the picture of savantism. Are we suggesting that some of these incredible talents, the sudden genius, could actually be influenced or even sourced from some kind of external, possibly parasitic entity?
That is a significant implication arising from the research data, yes. It suggests the negative emotions churning in that vulnerable solar plexus, the fear, the anxiety, might actually feed the connected entity.
Feed it.
In an energetic sense. The entity maintains the link, partly by stimulating those feelings in the host, keeping that supply going.
That's a deeply unsettling idea, that anxiety could literally fuel talent, and genius might come with this hidden, ongoing, energetic cost.
It's a challenging concept, definitely.
So the crucial insight here, from this research perspective, is that the creative output, the amazing music, the complex calculations, the artistic visions, might not always be purely self-generated.
It suggests they can be directly inspired by interference, as the source material puts it. The entity might provide the complex information, the creative spark, the mathematical insight.
But it's sustained by the person's anxiety.
Sustained by the anxiety, the fear, maybe stemming from their altered state, their disability, or just the immense strain of coping with this sudden, overwhelming change in their life.
That realization that creativity itself might not always be pure forces us back to the source of the knowledge. If some is external, maybe even corrupted. Let's look deeper inside again, to the most fundamental level, DNA. Does any of this connect to, say, ancestral memory locked in our genes?
That's a key question the research explored. And interestingly, regarding inherited memory, the findings did not show evidence that acquired savant syndrome specifically unlocks talents passed down through family genes.
So it's not like suddenly tapping into your great-grandmother's hidden musical genius.
Apparently not. Based on this data, it seems to be more personal than ancestral in that way.
Okay, so not the family tree. What about the information potentially stored within our own DNA structure, perhaps from past experiences?
Now that is where things get really profound. The research suggests physical damage, the trauma itself, can trigger a kind of undecoding.
Undecoding.
Yes, undecoding informational parts of the DNA, accessing deep subconscious structures, even potentially ancient life memories. This isn't quite learning a new skill. It's more like remembering something profound from a past existence.
Remembering, wow. But accessing that kind of deep memory, especially trauma-related memory from past lives,
It requires a very high level of consciousness to process and heal internally, which is, of course, a massive undertaking for someone already dealing with the trauma and the sudden savant abilities.
so the physical shock acts like a key unlocking this vast personal archive.
In a sense, yes. It suggested that individuals with savant syndrome might even experience a sort of return to their original DNA. Or if their non-physical etheric DNA was damaged or fragmented from past traumas, the physical shock could trigger a kind of regeneration or repair on that subtle level.
A healing crisis, almost forced by the trauma.
Something like that. The physical trauma forces a confrontation and potentially a healing within the non-physical self.
Okay, now this feels like a critical point the researchers wanted to emphasize, and it's directed right at you, the listener. This potential for DNA restoration, this return to an original state. It's not just for trauma survivors, is it?
Absolutely not. And this is perhaps the most hopeful and profound takeaway from the entire study. The information strongly suggests that every single person holds the possibility of returning to their original purest DNA.
Purest DNA, meaning?
Unmodified, fully functional, the blueprint of our essential self. Regardless of current health conditions history, the potential is there.
And how do we access it, according to this research, if not through trauma?
The path described is through consistent inner work. Specifically, work, internal focus, and purity. It's about a conscious internal effort towards self-realization and energetic clarity, not waiting for an external shock. That potential is universal.
That's a really powerful message. Shifting gears slightly, before we wrap up, there were a couple of other structural points in the research. First, this gender disparity acquired savant syndrome seems to affect more men than women. Any energetic explanation for that?
Yes, the research attributed this to pre-existing differences in typical energetic channels and polarization between male and female subtle bodies.
Meaning?
Essentially, the source suggests male energetic structures might be, on average, more susceptible to the specific kind rapid high-intensity energy shifts that trigger acquired savantism, perhaps more volatile or prone to this particular kind of rewiring under stress.
Interesting. And the second point, can these abilities be activated without the severe brain damage? Is there a less destructive path?
Yes, thankfully. While trauma is often the fastest and most dramatic trigger, the research did note that controlled, conscious work can achieve similar openings over time.
What kind of work?
Things like dedicated physical therapy focused on neurology, detailed work directly with the nervous system, specific light or impulse stimulation, even certain types of physical stimulation on skin receptors, like using acupressure mats, spike mats, things that strongly engage the nervous system.
So methods that gently encourage the system to adapt and open channels.
Exactly. It requires conscious effort, persistence, and work, but it avoids the often devastating physical and emotional consequences of severe trauma.
That offers a path for conscious development, which is encouraging. Okay, but now, we really need to pause and talk about the source material itself. Because you mentioned this comes from hypnotic research, often single sessions. We need to put a big asterisk here, don't we?
We absolutely do. This is the crucial context, the methodological caveat that applies to everything we've discussed. Information gathered from single hypnotic sessions or even a small number is almost always highly contaminated.
Contaminated, what does that mean in this context? False information.
Not necessarily false, but filtered, distorted. Contamination can come from many places. The person being hypnotized, the medium or facilitator, their own strong beliefs, their expectations, their subconscious biases can color the information coming through.
Okay, the human element.
Yes. Then there's the potential for interference from external entities. That same interference we discussed earlier can absolutely try to intercept or manipulate information during a session.
Right.
And there's even distortion just from the information having to travel, let's say, across different dimensions or levels of reality to reach the conscious mind. It's like a radio signal getting static.
Yeah.
You can't just take insights from one or two sessions as proven fact.
So if the raw data is potentially so messy, how does reliable research even happen in this field? How do you find the signal in the noise?
It requires a very strict, very rigorous protocol. Painstaking work, really. You have to ask the exact same questions, explore the exact same parameters across hundreds, ideally thousands, of independent sessions.
Thousands.
Yes, using different subjects, different trained and neutral observers or mediums. Then you meticulously compare all the data. Most of it, maybe 99%, will be noise, personal beliefs, random thoughts, entity interference, symbolic language specific to that one session.
So you discard almost everything.
You sift through it all to find the tiny percentage, that may be 1% of information, that consistently appears across all or the vast majority of independent sessions. That tiny fraction of corroborated shared data, that's the gold dust. That's a potentially reliable insight.
Okay, that's incredibly important context. So the fascinating details we've explored today, the 200x brain activity, the solar plexus vulnerability, the entity influence, the DNA potential is, these should be seen as part of that potential gold dust, insights carefully filtered through that process, but still preliminary clues rather than final answers.
Precisely. There are compelling patterns, recurring themes identified through that rigorous comparison, pointing towards a much larger, more complex reality about our energy, our consciousness, our history, and our hidden potential. Clues on the path.
Understood. Well, that brings us towards the end of a truly mind-bending deep dive. We've touched on the physical trauma triggering this hyperactive frontal lobe,
Yeah.
fueled by this intense, almost alien energy. We've uncovered the unsettling idea of external influences potentially shaping savant creativity and explored that profound link between trauma, deep memory, and maybe even our original DNA blueprint.
And if we circle back to that key insight that the path to unlocking our own original DNA, our purest potential, lies not in external shocks, but in inner work, focus, and purity. And if we accept that we all might have these incredible latent abilities sleeping within us, it really poses a question directly to you, listening right now. What unknown talents, what unique vision, what untapped creativity might be locked inside you, waiting not for some dramatic event, but for you to consciously turn your focus inward, to start identifying with your true essential self rather than just looking outward.
That is the perfect thought to sit with this week. Thank you for joining us on this exploration into the mysteries of the awakened and sometimes interfered with mind. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.